Happy Hanukkah, my dear friends. This is Hanoch, broadcasting from beautiful Tekoa in the Judean desert. It's the 8th day of Hanukkah. In a few hours, we're going to go into Shabbat, Parshat Miketz. With your permission, I wanted to just share a few thoughts about the current events in Israel. We're over 2 months from the beginning of the war we're currently in with Gaza, and it's difficult, to say the least, as we know. Precious soldiers being lost. The week before this, the grandson of someone I did some gardening work for once was killed. Very wonderful boy from American family in Israel, Ben Zussman, and he had written a note to his family when he was on the way to the base when the war started, which he intended to them to read if he didn't return, and unfortunately he didn't return. A young 22-year-old man. And he said many beautiful things, and not to be upset. He was happy to defend Jerusalem and the Jewish people. And he also said that if he's taken alive or dead, his family shouldn't do any campaigns to have any hostages released in return for him. This is an amazing letter, amazing family, one of many that we've lost in recent days. The defense minister made a comment in the past week or so, which I found a little bit upsetting, although I don't think he intended it that way. He said Hamas did not expect the strength of our response. They were surprised by the tremendous strength of our response. Well, that might be so, but in fact, I think such a comment itself, unfortunately, is the greatest indictment of our failed policies over the past decades. If Hamas did not expect that we respond strongly, then that's a terrible indictment of our policy. Because the enemy should always know and fear that our response is going to be strong and overwhelming. And hopefully then they won't do something in the first place. That's what's called deterrence. So unfortunately, I think that the defense minister was right, but he didn't realize, he somehow thought he was giving praise to Israel by saying that, not realizing that he's actually pointing out what our mistake was. Stop being too critical, but that's the point of this commentary, is to give my opinion. I'd also like to talk about the representatives of Israel in the United Nations. You know, the UN this week, they first tried in the Security Council and then in the General Assembly to demand an immediate ceasefire. The UN, historically, every time Israel starts winning a war, calls for a ceasefire. And what's upsetting, that's not surprising, but what's upsetting to me is the tepid response of our representatives there. Our current representative there, Gilad Erdan, I remember him from when he was the Minister of Tourism or Internal Security or some other silly ministry that we have in the government. And we used to go to the airport and his voice would be there saying, "Hello, this is Gilad Erdan, Minister of Security. We remind you that you're not allowed to carry guns in the airport. Have a nice day." And that was really great. But now he's the ambassador to the UN. And when in recent days, when the General Assembly was calling for a ceasefire, he held up a sign saying, "For ceasefire, call so and so, the head of Hamas," and he gave his phone number. Well, it's nice to have like cute media props and everything. I don't know if it helps, but we need people like Abi Iban, our first representative to the UN, who could speak eloquently and intelligently and explain things to the world. It'd be nice just as starters that our representative spoke English well. That'd be a good start. Gilad Erdan is sort of harking back to the days of Yitzhak Rabin when he was ambassador to America. It's always nice actually if your ambassador can actually speak English well. Not that I have anything against people who don't speak languages well. I myself don't speak Hebrew well. But then again, it would be a good trait to find in an ambassador to the UN or to the United States to speak English well. But since our ambassadors aren't saying things that I think they should say, let me give my opinion of what our representatives in the United Nations should be saying, for example, during these days. First of all, it's a wonderful opportunity for education. There's woeful ignorance around the world of the history of what's gone on here in Israel in the past century or more. It's a wonderful opportunity to explain to them how Gaza came to be in the first place. To explain to them how when Israel was established, Israel welcomed all the Arabs living here to become citizens of the state. But many of them refused, and their neighboring countries called on them to retreat from Palestine so they could kill off the Jews and then they would return. And that was the origin of the Palestinian refugee problem. And what's most important for a UN representative to tell the world is that Israel cannot be expected to take on responsibilities that aren't its. That's a big problem in life. People take on responsibilities that really aren't theirs. We have enough responsibilities that are ours. If only we should do those as well as we should. But we can't take on responsibilities of things that aren't our responsibilities. And although Arabs and the Palestinians in Gaza, Egypt has not allowed them in for the past 75 years. Jordan has not, in the beginning Jordan let some of them in, but Jordan today does not want Palestinians coming from Gaza to Jordan. Jordan, which is the Palestinian state, 70% of British Mandate Palestine, which was made into an Arab state. Saudi Arabia brings in workers from Malaysia, I don't know where, before they use Palestinian laborers. None of the Arab countries want Palestinians to come into their country. And Israel can't be expected to take on responsibility for what other Arab countries themselves aren't willing to take on. Likewise, I would say, and respectfully to President Biden and others who say that whoever we is, it means he supports a two-state solution. Well, that's nice, Maybe you want to give a state to the Palestinians. Maybe your home state of Delaware. Your home state of Delaware, which is the second smallest state in America, is about 20 times the size of the Gaza Strip. Maybe you could just give 1/10 of Delaware for a Palestinian state. And you wouldn't hardly feel the difference. But Israel can't give up any of its territory nor let people that want to kill us into our country. That has to be made clear. By the way, speaking of sizes of Gaza, we often hear this canard repeated around the world in all the media that that Gaza is one of the most densely populated places on earth. Well, that's not exactly true. In fact, that's quite not true. That is to say, every city in this country, in this world, is one of the most densely populated places on earth. Gaza is not particularly more densely populated than any other city. In fact, the area of the Gaza Strip is about 365 square kilometers. The area of Manhattan is about 59 square kilometers, meaning about 1/6 the size of the Gaza Strip. And what's the relative populations of Manhattan and the Gaza Strip? Manhattan has 1.6 million people living in it. I also lived there for some time when I was in law school for a short time. I know what it's like to live in Manhattan. The Gaza Strip, they claim, has some 2.1 million people. That's unlikely. The one thing that the Gazans don't seem to be doing good at is actually counting people accurately. It's unlikely it has even 2 million people, but let's say, for the sake of argument, that it has 2 million people. It's probably less. It's probably closer to the population of Manhattan at 1.6 million. So that means you have a nearly identical population in an area 6 times bigger. That means that Manhattan is 5 to 6 times more densely populated than Gaza. In fact, Gaza is, according to those who figured these things out, Gaza is the 63rd most densely populated urban area in the world. 63rd, I mean there's 62 urban areas that are more densely populated than Gaza. Not to mention that Gaza is on a beautiful seafront, even nicer than the seafront in Manhattan. So what I'm trying to say is that the only thing that makes Gaza in any way uncomfortable is just the people who live there. There's nothing keeping them from making it into a beautiful, holy place. And there's no reason that we have to feel guilty or take responsibility. In fact, I feel we've taken way too much responsibilities over time, giving them water, giving them electricity. I don't know why. I don't believe it's our responsibility to give people who are trying to hurt us water and electricity. All the war in Gaza until now has only been above ground. There's a 300 plus miles of underground tunnels they have there. Supposedly, Tzal might start flooding them with seawater, although they're cut off among different places, so I don't know what the result of that's going to be, except we get a lot of wet feet there, maybe down there. But we just hope and pray. We really hope and pray, and we have to all pray a lot each day for our soldiers, for our civilians. We hope and pray that the army is taking a maximum force policy, that is to say, to use all our tools, all our weapons, use our tanks, use our planes, to make sure that the casualties are minimum on the Israeli side, even if it means that they have to be maximum on the other side. They started the war. One last thing, that what the UN rep should be saying, that Israel is prepared to let anyone who wants to get out of Gaza and wait someplace else to let them. We call upon the world to help set up camps outside Gaza. If any countries want to take them in temporarily, obviously Egypt doesn't want to take them in, Jordan doesn't take them in, no one wants to take them in. Maybe if America wants, America sent over 2 battleships, thank you very much. Maybe you want to bring on some Palestinians there and bring them temporarily out of the war zone. If they were checked out that they're not Hamas people. Anyone's willing to help. The world is willing to help. Israel is not trying to keep anyone in Gaza during a war, but we have to fight a war when people are trying to hurt us. People are still firing at us. And that's what I wish our UN representatives could tell the world a little better. In any case, it's Hanukkah, for another hour here in Israel. I wish you all a happy Hanukkah. And we should hope to hear good news and go forth to good things. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to all.